A new documentary, A Billion Lives, by Milwaukee filmmaker Aaron Bieber, gets its North American premiere at the Pabst Theater tomorrow night. We'll talk with him next on Lake Effect, right after this.
We're back with more of Lake Effect. I'm Mitch Teich.
And I'm Bonnie North. The World Health Organization predicts that within this century, 1 billion people will die from smoking. Despite raising taxes on tobacco and legal victories against tobacco companies in the late 20th century, millions of people worldwide continue to start and then get addicted to smoking.
This confluence of factors caught the attention of Milwaukee filmmaker Aaron Bieber, who was looking for a compelling topic for his first full-length feature. Along with that WHO report, he found what he says are sometimes misleading, sometimes simply false reporting on the emerging industry surrounding vaping or e-cigarettes. As he investigated further, Bieber discovered a much more complex story than he expected.
Tomorrow, his documentary, A Billion Lives, will get its North American premiere at Milwaukee's Pabst Theater. Bieber, who is the director and executive producer of the film, stopped by the Lake Effect studio to speak with Audrey Nowakowski about his work, and he explained what set things in motion for him.
About 8 years ago, someone I'd worked with actually had died from lung cancer, and I had to kind of be around that. And this person kept smoking, actually, while they were dying from the very thing, and they could not even quit even when it was obvious they were going to die from it. That kind of shook me up a little bit, and I didn't really do much with that other than I did, some research and try to understand like that. And I was actually a little bit more into healthcare type stuff back then, and so it was really troubling. I did see this whole vaping thing start. The commercials look just stupid. I mean, people like poking themselves with it to prove to the waitress that they weren't smoking. It's just like, gosh, guys, you look like douchebags. I mean, this is just really stupid. Just so you could smoke indoors. That's what it looked like. And I dismissed it, and I actually made fun of some people I knew, like friends, and like, geez, guys, just quit or smoke the real thing. It looks stupid. Like, yeah, I was one of those guys. As we started looking into potential topics for our next big film, some of these fraudulent studies had been coming out that were all over the news that saying vaping and e-cigarettes are worse than smoking, may cause more cancer than smoking. And of course, I was like, yeah, you guys not only do you look dumb, but you're acting stupid because you're actually being worse than cigarettes. Like, how dumb is this? And then it come to find out that study that was all over the news everywhere was actually a fraudulent study where they burned the liquid. And anytime you burn anything, you'll create carcinogens. If you had burnt toast every day, you'd get cancer from it. And that would be easy to prove in science because burning things creates carcinogens. And so when I found that out, and then the whole thing about 1 billion people, the World Health Organization from the United Nations actually predicts that this century 1 billion people die from smoking. Here's a technology that's helping like 45 million people quit smoking so far, and it's being lied about in the media and being fraudulent studies are being published. How is this possible? And 1 billion people dying, that's a topic that we figured would be pretty big. And so we decided to look into it, spent a couple months researching it, and then, we launched into it wholeheartedly.
Well, I'll admit that I was kind of in the same boat, that I didn't get vaping. I didn't quite understand what it was, and I thought, well, you're still smoking, so why even bother switching? But what's the difference between the cigarettes that we've been known to shy away from, to shame people with, versus vaping? Right.
Well, the easiest thing is just that lighting on fire. I mean, if you got to have a lighter to light it on fire, you're creating carcinogens and carbon monoxide and the 4,000 to 8,000 chemicals that are in these cigarettes when they're burning. All of that together not only is really addictive, but it also is what causes all the heart disease, lung cancer, COPD, asthma, all that stuff is all caused only from burning. Burning of, in this case, tobacco. And it goes into your lungs, obviously, and creates all kinds of issues. The vaporizer technology, this vapor tech, is basically the same thing that's in like medical-grade nebulizers and asthma inhalers and even some other approved products for people that quit smoking are the exact same thing. The only difference is in some cases is the flavors, which helps people enjoy it more than smoking because it tastes better. That's probably the main difference, and just the fact that this is a lot of small businesses that have kind of popped up. I think it's something like 20,000 small businesses have popped up to help deal with the demand because obviously less smokers, 70% want to quit. So of the 1 billion people that are going to die, we have to remember that 70% of those people wanted to quit. Well, here's a business, an industry that pops up where I just went to one of these the other day, and they're literally at the counter talking to this old lady. She said she smoked her whole life. She wants to quit. They were helping her find the right flavor that would help. They were helping her find the right device. Like, they have an industry of doing this. And a lot of the people that started these businesses are all ex-smokers that wanted to help other people. It was kind of this like interesting little cottage industry that popped up. And basically, the main difference is definitely the difference between lighting on fire and this, just atomizing this liquid that has nicotine. It's the same as fog machines. It's not even new technology. The only difference is you can carry around the fog machine with you because of the battery technology. That's the only difference, really, is the battery technology.
Well, and so with a lot of things to grab onto and to kind of materialize, how did you lay out your vision to fit into an hour and a half of a documentary? You connected with Hon Leek, he was the inventor of the e-cigarettes, and, created so he could stop smoking.
Yeah, basically what we did, and we didn't have a set plan at first. Okay, we went about this in sort of an investigative journalism approach. We said, all right, we've been doing some research. We kind of have a suspicion here. So it wasn't like we went in totally clueless, but we said, all right, let's see who we can get interviews with. So we just literally contacted like the American Lung Association, American Cancer, Tobacco Free Kids, American Heart Association, the FDA, CDC, and all kinds of other people who were responsible for people stopping smoking, because we want to say, well, what's the deal? What's the true deal? You spent your whole life helping or wanting people to stop smoking. What's your current stance on this and why? All of our interviews were rejected. Nobody, and this was in some cases after we had already landed some pretty big interviews. So we weren't some nobodies at this point. We had already had a following of about 20,000 people for the film, and we reached out to these people, and they literally said no. They asked us, though. They talked to us. It wasn't like they ignored us. Well, what position are you taking? Well, we're trying to keep this somewhat neutral. We're investigating. We're not anti-vaping, if that's what you're asking. And then we didn't hear back after that. So, that makes me even more suspicious. But what we did get is some people reached out to us, like the former World Health Organization executive director. We ended up meeting him at a global forum on nicotine. He's one of the guys who helped craft all these anti-smoking rules around the world. He was eager to sit down and talk about this issue because he was kind of one of the creators of this. And he said, yeah, we're screwing this up bad. Like, this is bad. And he was the guy, he's the original anti-smoking guy. He says this vaping could save 1 billion people, and we're literally blowing this off. And I met also the former president of the World Medical Association. These are the top 2 doctors in the world pretty much at the time. They're both formerly in those positions now. But he said 70% of doctors in the U.S. don't even know that nicotine doesn't cause cancer. Nicotine is a lot like caffeine. It doesn't hurt you other than it makes your blood pressure a little higher, you're more alert. It's a stimulant. He's a doctor. He says, I was wrong. My colleagues are wrong. We don't know what we're talking about. So for doctors to be saying this in a movie is just shocking, and obviously the inventor of the original e-cigarette, we met up with him, and yeah, he said, I created this to stop smoking, and it worked. He stopped. Mm-hmm. Imagine, so it's like after we had assembled 200 hours of interviews, we said, now that we've learned what we've learned, let's tell the public the story. And so the movie is actually more of a story of how did we find the truth and what did we find.
Even though going into this initially with a somewhat neutral topic, one of the things the film touches upon a lot is the implication that governments are still receiving settlement money from big tobacco. When there was this big movement in the 1980s to defeat, quote, quote, big tobacco, yet they're still depending on a lot of these tax settlements. And that perhaps this is why they're making an effort to block legislation and production of e-cigarettes. So
yeah,
are they taking a different approach to how cigarettes were, quote, targeted for the young, poor, black, and stupid, and now they're trying to take another element away to continue perhaps monopolizing on a market?
Well, it's troubling for sure, because not only are the taxes, which we all know about, but that's a whole side thing. These states are actually receiving in about the 20-year period about $250 billion, and it's not in taxes. It's actually commissions based on sales. So the more cigarettes sold in a state, the more money they make. And I know that's a lot like a tax, but it's actually paid behind the scenes. It's not something that's evident. It's not a sales tax or anything like that. It's actually essentially a commission based on that. And so you look at some of these states, as this vapor technology has been helping millions of people quit smoking, the smoking rates are going down. Right now among middle school and high school kids, it's at like an all-time low since they started tracking it. An all-time low. And yes, the people experimenting with the vapor technology is high for sure, is higher. But when you look at the science and you see that there's no major health implications, who cares? The people smoking are actually going down. That's the key here. Talking about how are they taking this away? Essentially, the people that were targeted for smoking, as the movie said, the young, the poor, the black, and the stupid, which I think is a terrible way for tobacco companies to be treating people. But that's literally what they were saying. And you look at the people in general that are smoking, about half of them have mental illnesses of some sort or some sort of a mental disability. And now we're literally saying we're going to take away the one thing you had while you were drowning to hold on to. And when you start looking at the money trail, you start to say why. And it is sad. It makes me sad. Yeah,
well, and what's the current status of e-cigarette legislation, not only here but globally, because you go all over the world?
Yeah. Well, the U.S. used to be one of the best, and we were open to innovation, and we were very free about it. The FDA was urged by the big pharmaceutical companies. We don't know what tobacco is doing, but the pharmaceutical companies, through the charities that they fund, front groups essentially, they were urging the FDA to ban this right away when it first came out, nip it in the bud. They were nervous then, and they did, but a judge actually said, what are you doing? This is insane. So they actually threw that out. And since that point, the U.S. was very open to innovation. A lot of people, this was the freest country in the world for people to quit smoking. But actually starting on Monday, all innovation in the U.S. will no longer be allowed for this technology. They literally, on Monday, the prohibition begins. The FDA literally projected themselves that they would put about 99% of this industry out of business. And the only remaining 1% is big tobacco, because they actually are starting to make some of their own devices. They're not known as being really very good. No one's really using them. But like the kind you get at the gas stations, those little ones, those essentially have not been very helpful for people to quit historically. But those will be the only things left standing. And so they say they didn't put everything out of business, but essentially what they did is they put out an entire industry. And this was, even though it looked weird, was one of the biggest new industries in our country since computers. This was huge. This was like $5-6 billion industry that Americans were having jobs during a bad time, and they were exporting things that they were creating and innovating all over the world. And that is all going to be going away very soon. That people have already begun closing up shop, and Monday's the beginning of all of that. So the status in the U.S. is we went from one of the best, most open countries for innovation and helping people to one of the worst. Around the world, Europe has legalized it now with some influence from lobbyists. They've made it a little difficult, but it's still legal. Australia, they took the U.S. lead early on and they banned it. New Zealand, they're actually reversing it after our movie. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with this. But other countries are following suit, and you start to look at the money, and it's the same money trail all over the world. And so sadly, this is one case where the U.S., we are being leaders, but we're being leaders in the wrong way now, and we're actually exporting death instead of innovation. And so, yeah, that all starts on Monday.
You mentioned the great progress of getting a decision revoked in New Zealand to make it legal there, but tomorrow you're having the North American premiere here in Milwaukee. So why here?
Really, honestly, the bottom line is we really wanted to do something for Milwaukee. We made this film here. It's all Milwaukee filmmakers. The soundtrack's produced by Milwaukee artists, Stephen Pitzel and Timothy Wolf. These guys, you might know them from Antics or The Royal or The Other Shapes. These guys are brilliant. Obviously, we filmed a lot of it. Some of the in-studio stuff was all done right here downtown Milwaukee. We wanted to celebrate with our city what our artists could do. We'll go to L.A., but we want to go home first. We're ready to come home. We wanted to do this at home. And so the Pabst Theater is one of the best theaters in the whole world as far as I've seen. And I've been to a lot of theaters. It's beautiful. It's the fourth oldest theater in the whole country that's been operating. It's amazing. We're super pumped about it. We got one of the senators is coming. We have people coming from all over the world for this. And they're going to be spending money in Milwaukee too. So we're pretty pumped about helping our neighbors have better sales as well. It's going to be great. I think the Intercontinental said they're sold out of hotel rooms. It's good. That's why we wanted to help our neighbors out.
Well, and what's your biggest takeaway from this experience so far?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me, I used to look at these people using this, these devices, these weird things in their hands and blowing out smoke, what looked like smoke. And I said, I used to think these guys were just losers. and really now I see him, I just want to give him a hug because I know that person was brave enough to face the ridicule and to just do something that would save their life and give their kids a father or mother for longer and give their grandkids a grandma and grandpa for longer. And that's kind of the big takeaway. I was never a smoker, so I didn't understand it. I used to just think they should just quit. And now I understand that is a real problem. That's like telling an alcoholic just to quit. It's not easy to quit. We need to help people. And here's a thing that we don't even have to pay for as a government. This is good for everybody. And I've changed my perspective on that. And then also how really screwed up our government is. Like that too. How screwed up my impression of these people were, these vapors were. That's my number one takeaway. My number two takeaway is how are we so focused on our favorite TV show or our Facebook updates that we have not been paying attention to what our own government is doing. And we have to wake up because they're not just hurting these people. They're probably hurting us too, and we don't even know it.
If anyone from a civilian walking into the theater to a legislator, government official, FDA official, if they saw your movie, what is one thing you want them to know?
The one thing that I want them to know is that we're being lied to, because a lot of them think they know because they've been told by people what is going on, but those people are lying. They're either lying about what vaping is or they're lying about being experts. Some of these groups are essentially front groups for big pharmaceutical companies, so these can't be trusted, but they have historically been very trusted people. And so I would like everyone who sees this movie to just say, we need to reset the conversation. Let's look at the science. I'm all for the truth. Let's look at the truth. There's science. I mean, the Royal College of Physicians, which is the most prestigious medical organization in the world, they were the first ones to link smoking to cancer 2 years before our own people did. And those people have come out just this year and they said, guys, we've looked at like 50-some studies. This overwhelming evidence that you guys need to encourage this. Encourage it. Yet here in the U.S., we're banning it. Like, that makes no sense to me. But we need to reset the conversation because everybody thinks they know something about vaping. Everybody. Whether it's just like smoking, whether it kills, nobody knows what they're talking about. And so but yet 1 billion people are going to die. So it's worth taking a little bit of time just to understand the facts so that when we see our neighbors vaping, we're not judging them. We're not calling them stupid. I did it. I'm guilty. Guilty as charged. I was one of those guys. And I'm hoping that I can kind of help make up for that a little bit with this movie.
Well, it's a really well done piece of work, and I'm sure the impact will be much greater once it premieres here.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Well, best of luck with the premiere, and thanks so much for taking the time to come in today.
You bet. Thank you.
Aaron Bieber is director and executive producer of the documentary A Billion Lives. He spoke with Audrey Nowakowski. The film's North American premiere is here in Milwaukee at the Pabst Theater on Saturday. There is more of the conversation, and there is information about the film and its premiere at WUWM.com.